Again, it works as a VST and audio units plugin. I am going to show you the audio units one today, but again, it works in VST, and I'm showing you in Ableton, but again, it works in Logic, FL Studio. You said you're working with GarageBand, right? It works in GarageBand as well, so if you have GarageBand, you can rock with it. Anything, again, that takes a VST or AU, it works in, right? So you, in Ableton, just as an example, find Serato Sample, you drag it to a MIDI track, and it's going to open up like this when it first starts. You can either go to your desktop and you can drag a file right into it, or you can go to load, which will then take you to a directory, and then you can go find something that you want to use. So I'm going to go down here to Nautilus, Bob James, and load it up. So really quickly, it does the analyzation. When it finishes, it gives you the full waveform, and again, you can scrub through that audio by just taking your mouse and just going through to get to the point that you want to start to work with. Whether it be by a point in the song that you know or by frequency that you want to be able to get to very easily. Or if you have your mouse in the middle here, you can scrub through the audio so you can get right to where you want to. When you have your mouse in the middle here, you have these plus and minus signs which allow you to zoom in and zoom out, very similar to Serato DJ, and then you can get right on the transient where you want to start working with and get busy, right? It gives you, when it analyzes it, the original BPM of the song. So you might not be able to see it here, but this is about 99 beats per minute. But it automatically syncs up to the session tempo. So here, the tempo is 120, and it's automatically gonna sync it here. So when I go to play this at 120, it's gonna be in the same key, sped up, but sounding clear and clean. It's not gonna sound like crazy stretched. It's not gonna have any digital glitches or pops, anything like that. So let's play it real quick. So easy to be able to play that at 120. If I want to change the tempo, I go to the master BPM inside the session and I slow it down. So I'm going to play this and then slow it down and then speed it back up again. You're going to see that it's going to follow it automatically. So I didn't have to do any warping of the audio, right? I didn't have to put this into Ableton and set up warp markers and try to set it up to warp it and then stretch it from there. This catches it automatically and does that work for you off top, right? It also, again, gives you the BPM of the track, or I'm sorry, pardon me, the key of the track. So when it analyzed it, it gave me the BPM and then it also gives you the key. So this is an A minor. Now, I can look at this in a few different types of key in terms of like the view of the key. Right now I have it in classical key, so I have it in A minor. Now if I hold down Option and click here, I can look at it in open key, which some other programs use to be able to set key, or I can also look at it in the Camelot wheel, all this based off of the circle of fifths, right? So I can transpose the key, and I'll put this back into classical key so you can see it, to any key that I want to while it's playing. So. So I can transpose it by 2 octaves, up or down, semitones in between. When I do that, again, there's no glitches or pops, disruption to the audio. Still stays clean the whole time while you're playing and you're doing it. Again, just easy manipulation of audio where in some other programs it would take you a long time to be able to do that. It just happens really quickly right here, right? Okay, cool. So let's talk about these cue points. So I'm gonna get to a point in the song here. Perfect. So I'm gonna get right back here and I'm gonna zoom in so I can get right to the point where I wanna be at. Now, if you are on your keyboard inside of Ableton or Logic, you can use the typing keyboard function to be able to use the cue points, right? So for me here, if I press the letter A, as long as I'm in the right octave, sorry, let me get in the right octave here. There we go, one more. There we go. I can set up a cue point, right? And I'm gonna delete this one here, go to delete. So now with that cue point set, I can do reverse, level, filter, attack, release, key shifting, and time stretching. So I'm just gonna show an example of that real quick. So again, very easy, being able to manipulate the audio very easy like that. Now what you can do is technically have multiple cue points in the same place in the audio, and then have each of those cue points in that same place in the audio do something slightly different, right? So I have A, S, D, F, and G. So they're all the same here, right? What I'm gonna do now is go through and change these by key shifting them. So I'm gonna keep A the same, but I'll go to S, and I'll bring this down, D, F, someone said a cheat code, I heard it, and G here, go down one more, and now I have this. How long did that take? Pretty quick, right? Right, okay, cool. So, because this works as a MIDI instrument, then I can record any sequence of me playing those different pads and start making something, right? So I'm gonna go over here, just get a little clock going on, and I'm just gonna do a little pass real quick. This is just like a quick little idea sample thing, nothing crazy, right? So. All right, so I have that there real quick. I'm just gonna go clean it up, so I'll quantize it. And there, and let's play it back. All right, so done pretty quickly. Now, I can speed up or slow down that whole pass by changing the master clock while that's playing. Question?
Did you change it in Ableton or in the Serato?
So the question was, do I change the BPM inside of Ableton, or do I change it inside the plugin, inside of Serato Sample? Technically, I'm changing it inside of Ableton, and it's syncing up to the BPM inside of Serato Sample, so it's changing both of them at the same time. Now, I could technically unsync it, and I'll show you that in a couple of seconds, but it's usually easiest just to be able to change the master clock inside the program that you're using, because it just follows it, it syncs up to it automatically, right? Now, what I can also do is change the key while it's playing too. So let's play that back real quick. Right, so change the speed of it, change the key of it, whatever you want to do is going to automatically react to it, do the job, right? And I can start to go through each one of them if I want to. If I want to have maybe this one here play a little bit slower, I can time stretch just that particular pad if I want to by coming here and changing it by percentage or half time and double time. So I'm going to do it by half, so it's going to be minus 50. So when I play this, so you hear that first one kind of plays a little bit slower while the other one's playing its original speed. I can speed one of those up, so maybe I want to speed this one up here, so I'll do it by 100%. And maybe I want to filter one of those, so I'll filter this here on D. Right, so again, manipulation of each one of those pads individually, very easy to be able to do really quick, right? So just to kind of give you an idea of a quick thing that can happen, I will throw in some drums real quick. Give me 1 second here. Let's get this back to its original state. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna put another instance of Serato Sample. So drop it into a MIDI track, and I'm gonna go through my directory here, and I'm gonna go to Think by Lynn Collins, classic break. It's gonna analyze it. Okay, cool. Now, this is actually kind of interesting, and I'm gonna put this into the Camelot wheel so we can see this here. So, this originally was at 8A, which technically also matches with 9A, but when I transposed it down by 5 steps, it actually put it into 9A, and Think is also in 9A as well. So these two harmonically will work together to be able to work, right? So if I pulled a sample that wasn't in 9A, let's say it was in, 4A, I could transpose 4A to be in 9A, and then those two harmonically will work together, right? Okay, so let me go to the break real quick. And I'm gonna set up some cue points real quick. And again, this is a quick little idea. So I'm gonna put a cue point here. And I'll put one here. And let's do a little pass on this real quick. Quantize that real quick. Right? So again, I can change it to be whatever speed I want to. It's going to follow. It's going to sync up. It's locking in. It's good to go, right? I'm gonna go over here to select all. And here with select all, when I press this, all the pads that I have inside that instance of Serato Sample will now have the same effect going across all of them at the same time. So here, I'm gonna go to the release here. I'm gonna turn up the release a little bit to kind of choke those drums, and I'm gonna actually put it inside of trigger mode. So there's 2 ways you can actually use Serato Sample with the pads. The first one is with hold, which means that you actually have to hold down on the key or on the pad for it to play. When you let go, it stops. And then you have trigger or one-shot mode, which means you press it once and it keeps on going, and so you press the next thing, right? So now when I play this back, all right, so we got that there. And just for some fun, let's throw another version of Serato Sample in here. And let's find an acapella. So let's take this here. Big up to my folks at BPM Supreme over here. Pull this acapella from their website. This is Brandy, I Wanna Be Down, acapella. So this is what's so fun about Serato Sample. Once I realized this, I realized that remixes are gonna be clean and super fast for all of you when you do this, right? So generally with most acapellas, if you throw it inside of Ableton, you're gonna have to sit there and try to warp it because there's no beat for it to warp to. It will take you hours to figure out how to get it to fall in line and lock in. You throw an acapella into Serato Sample, it does that work for you. So I'm gonna put a cue point at the place where I'm gonna drop it in, thinking like a DJ, because I am one. I'm gonna put that cue point there, and when I drop it in, it's gonna lock into the audio. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this into trigger mode, so that way when I press it, it just goes and it plays until I press something else, right? So I have it here.
I would like to get to know if I could be.
All right, cool. So we got that there. And let's turn that volume up a little bit on that there.
And if I don't let you know, then I won't be for you.
right? So very easily, we're gonna take the acapella, I put the cue point in, I dropped it in, it locked in, it's in the same key, so everything is sound harmonically good together, right? And then I can change the tempo faster or slower, right? So for you DJs that are out there that are doing remixes, you can make your own transition tracks that are remixes by being able to do tempo automation in whatever your DAW is. So if you want to have it at 120 and then transition down to, let's say, 70 or 60, right? So you go on like house, some Migos track or whatever, and you have it in house tempo, and then you transition it down to trap, you can make that happen very easily and work with. Any questions so far before I go forward with anything? Okay, so, yeah.
All right, so you know how some samples you can take the wave out and like drag it into your DAW, whatever it is. Like, say if you got only one section you want, but you don't want to just keep it in there. You may want to drag it out onto your other programs and maybe chop it up a little more. Can you do that or no?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can do, right? First thing is that let's say you recorded some audio into your DAW, right? And you only wanted one section to be to work with. You could chop that section up and then just throw that one particular section into Serato Sample and work with it, right? Once you have that audio in sample, you could chop that up with the cue points, replay it how you want to, have it in MIDI, and once it's in MIDI, you just bounce it down to audio, and you could have that audio and then chop that up some more, and then throw that back into sample again if you wanted to, and then manipulate it some more. So there's ways you can make that happen.
You see how you got the A, the W?
Yep.
Can you do that with your keys?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Okay, cool. So technically, and I'll get to back to this track over here, pardon, real quick. Okay, cool. So the question was, I was doing this with a keyboard. So you see that the letters are here, right? A, W, S, so on and so forth. It's the typing QWERTY keyboard that's here. I can do that same thing on a keyboard. So make sure it's on record arm. Right, I can do the same thing. All here, right? And if you're using a drum machine type MIDI controller, like Push, for example, let me just get it into its right setting here. There we go. Then I can do the same thing here. And I can make other ones too.
Alright. So it's like, we go straight to the key, like, let's say you ain't have, say it wasn't lighted up already.
Yeah.
It'd automatically go straight to the keys, or like?
Yeah, so if I, for example, with this one, W here, let me just delete that. Technically, W is this one here, right? So if I press this, it's gonna make that one right there, and then you can start to be able to work with it from there. Yeah, so you don't have to be stuck to just this keyboard. You can use a MIDI keyboard, or you can use some other type of MIDI instrument to be able to work with it. All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of this really quickly, but what I will do is keep those samples there. So I'm actually going to clear all of these here, and just to get to that keyboard thing, so we can get to that really quickly before I go on to all the other stuff, I'm gonna put a cue point here again. So I got it there, and now when I go to this little icon here, this is keyboard mode. So when I press this, now this puts it across the 88 keys, right? So and I can go up octave, right? And right now that's playing in mono mode, so that means it's gonna cut off whatever was previously before it. Like I can't do both of those as a chord, but if I put it into poly mode here, and I'll do this with my keyboard here. There we go, so. So now I can start to play chords with the sample, right? In fact, I'm gonna delete that one, and I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the track, where it might sound a little bit cleaner. So I'll go to the trash can, delete it. I'm gonna drag back all the way to the beginning, and I'll do it from here. Sorry, let me get that to the right octave. There we go, and put that into keyboard mode. So here we go. can also do that with the acapella as well, right? So I'm gonna go back to the Randy joint, and I'm gonna put it into poly mode, and I'll put it into keyboard mode, and now we should have this. Sorry, I'm gonna record real quick, pardon me. So now you can do kind of chorusy kind of things with your acapellas on top of it as well. Pretty easy. So keyboard mode is a really, really dope feature. I have a feeling you're gonna be using that a lot as you're going along and doing stuff, all right? Okay, so let's talk quickly about some of the auto set features. So let me clear out this one really quickly. So find samples. There are 4 auto set features. The first one is called find samples. Again, this kind of does some discovery for you, right? You press it, it gives you 16 cue points automatically, which are based on transients that it thinks that you're gonna be able to work with, right? So when I press this, automatically 16 samples or 16 cue points show up, and let's kind of walk through them and see what they are. Right, so maybe I like that one. So what I can do is I can press this favorite button here. And what happens when I press favorite is that if I go to dig for more samples by pressing find samples, all the other ones will kind of go to different transients while this one will still stay in the same place, right? So I'm gonna press find samples again. That one's still there. And I like that one there, so give me 1 second. So I'm gonna actually favorite that one as well, and maybe I like that one too, so I can favorite that one. And I can go back and press find samples again. Keep on digging through the track until I find all the pieces that I want. And then I can start to build out the track that I want to be able to make pretty quickly, right? Now, kind of going back and thinking about traditional sampling, right? Especially if you come from kind of like a 90s hip hop kind of idea, a lot of producers at that point in time would listen to a track and wait until they got to a sweet point or spot in the track, and then take that one little sweet spot and loop it up, or they would take that one little part and chop it up and kind of forget about all the other parts of the track, right? Find samples kind of makes you think, okay, well, maybe I wasn't thinking about this one part of the track, and then you hear it because it finds it for you really quickly, and you're like, oh wait, I forgot there was that one sound and maybe I could do something with it, right? And it helps you just kind of quickly discover and find things really quick. Find samples, as it's called, finds the samples for you, and you start to use those pieces and you put them together and you make it happen, right? So, and again, you favorite those one pieces so that those things will always be there for you to be able to work with them while you start to discover other pieces as you're going along. So again, find samples, super dope. I've literally seen people take this track here, which has been sampled by 20 million different people, and come up with something new within seconds of it, and then change the key and time stretch and so on and so forth, and it sounds like something completely different than what it originally was. And if you know kind of where Bob James is at, he's not really happy about people jacking his songs, right? So what I will say is this: technically, legally, you should be clearing your samples. Legally, you should be clearing your samples. What you choose to do with this is at your own prerogative. And I'll leave it at that, right? If you feel like you can do something that might be a little bit different than what someone else might have done, which might not sound like this, which means that you can't put Shazam up and someone might not be able to detect where it came from, that's on you. But legally, you should be clearing your samples. So please clear your samples. I'll leave it at that. All right, cool. So that's find samples. The next auto set feature is, pardon me, pull it up here real quick. Is set slicer. So I'm gonna clear these out real quick, but I'll stay in this part of the track. So set slicer is really great for drums, but you can use it with a bunch of other different stuff too, right? So what you can do is go to set slicer, And when you do that, this little dialog is going to show up here. So you can set slices based on beat size. So you can do 1 beat, half a beat, a fourth, a 16th, or go all the way up to 16 beats for slices, right? So you choose that by being able to press these little arrows here. So I'm gonna go by a half, and then when you go over here and press set slicer, press it, it's automatically gonna give you those chops for you to start to work with, right? So let me get this into range, pardon me, here we go. Right? So easily being able to have those chops. Now, what you can do are a couple of things, right? I'm going to truncate this so I can take out some of that tambourine in the back of the kick. So I'm gonna take this little part right here and just bring it back, and now takes out a little bit of that there. I'm gonna do the same thing for that hi-hat. Take a little bit of that there, and I'm actually gonna move it forward a little bit just to make sure it's right on that transient right there. And the same thing for that snare, real quick. Right side of those drums there. I'm gonna favorite those. So this one, favorite, this one, favorite, this one, favorite, right? I have all these other slices here. Now what's great about set slicer is that technically I can beat jump by pressing these two arrows, either going forward or backwards in the audio, which will take the rest of those cue points and move them forward in the track or backwards in the track, while these favorite ones still stay in the same place. So it's again almost like kind of discovering new parts, because you can move those slices around to different places in the audio and then find other parts that you want a bit of work with while still maintaining the pieces that you originally set with the favorites, right? So I'm gonna press this going forward, and now you see that all these cue points here are jumping forward, right? And now when I go to play those, right? So you have those there, but that kick is still there, the hi-hat is still there, that snare is still there, right? Now, what you can do, 1 second before I get the question. Right now in mono mode, when I try to play the kick and the hi-hat together, they're gonna cut each other off, right? But if I put it into poly, now I can do multiple kicks, snares, hi-hats, drums on top of each other, right? So I can play polyphonic with the drums as well, right? Or I can say, you know what? I don't like any more of those slices. Let me go back to find samples and press find samples, and now it's gonna dig through the rest of the track, still keep the kick, snare, hi-hat that I set, but then find other samples for me to work with and me get busy with those as well, right? Okay, question in the back.
Yeah, say like I got, what I want, but, I heard it 1,000 times and I don't want to work with it no more and I want to move to something else, but I still like it. Can you save that preset and come back to it?
Very, very good question. So can you save the preset? So there's a way to do that by doing saving it as a default preset. So if you come down here, you can save it as a default, as an audio unit, and you just name it to whatever you want it to be, and you can just recall it and bring it back in. You can do the same thing with the VST. In Logic, you can do the same thing by saving the instrument. So you can always recall the instrument, and when you recall it, it's gonna have all the cue points that you had previously set, right? And the exact, kind of setting for your release and your attack and so on and so forth. All that stuff pops back up, right? So even just the other day, I was at home and I sat down and I took Impeach the President, and I chopped up the drums the way that I wanted it to be chopped up, had all the cue points there, had it all sounding right the way I wanted to, saved it, opened up another session a day later, pulled those drums back in, and that setting was there, and I was good to go. So, yeah. Now, the thing you can't do, and I'll get to your question in 1 second, the thing you cannot do is move between Ableton and Logic with those saved presets. The preset saving for Ableton is just for Ableton. The preset saving for Logic is just for Logic. You can't go in between. This is slightly harder to do in some other programs, but Ableton and Logic will allow you to be able to do that. Yeah, question?
When you save the preset, does it save the audio with it? Like say you import audio samples from like a folder and then you kind of delete the folder so you the audio file with the preset so everything's together?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's a good question. He's asking if it saves the audio file, so it pulls everything back together. It does. So I'm just gonna drag this one here, this default one that I have here, and when I load it up, there it is. Yeah. So again, you can set up all the cue points, samples. You want to come back to those things later on for another session, pull it in, and it's good to go. Yep.
But does it duplicate the audio then?
No, it does not duplicate it. It's just recognizing the path from where it came from, and it's just pulling it in from there. Question in the back.
Say I saved the preset and I lost the audio, but I got the audio back. Will it remember?
It should remember it, yeah. I've done that before. Now, actually, that's a good point. So he's asking if you misplaced the audio, let's say you deleted it by accident from your computer, when you open up your session, regardless of what DAW that you're working with, if the audio file path is now been altered or changed, then it's gonna tell you automatically you're missing the file. Do you wanna relocate it? And then if you do, then you can go back and kind of retrace to where it is and then bring it in and be good to go. Okay, cool. All right, so we talked about fine samples, we talked about set slicer, set random, and key shift pad. I'll go through those really quickly and a couple other points, and then we'll get some questions and wrap this up. Let's go to set random. So fine samples and set random are very similar to each other. The difference being is that fine samples is kind of intelligently going through and trying to find those transients that it thinks you're gonna be able to work with and set those up for you, 16 of them, right? Set random is like taking 16 darts, throwing them on the wall. Might land on the target, but it might land off somewhere completely different than you were thinking it was gonna land, but that happy accident thing might happen because it might land in a place that you're like, oh wait, I didn't even know that note was there or that one sound was there. And then you're like, oh wait, that's dope. Let me get busy with it, right? So set random, you press it, 16 pop up, you start to figure out which ones you like, you favorite those, you start to record the MIDI notes out, same thing, right? You favorite some of the ones you have from set random, but then you may want to go back to find samples and do that, or go to set slicer and do that. There's multiple ways that you can go through and find different parts of the audio, and then once you get those parts, and you can go through and time stretch those, and you can change the key on those and release and attack and so on and so forth. Really easy, right? The last one of the auto set features, and I'll do it from right here, is key shift pad. So key shift pad is very similar to keyboard mode. The difference being is that this is going to give you 16 pads only for you to work with. So it's not gonna spread it across the whole 88 keys. If you're used to using an MPC, right, then think about this like kind of 16 key level. When you're on an MPC, it's gonna do that kind of similar thing. But what's great about it is that you can manipulate each one of those pads with these effects here. So reverse, level, filter, attack, release, key shift, time stretch. Whereas with keyboard mode, anything that you do here with any of those effects is gonna go across all the 88 keys at the same time, right? So when I press key shift pad here, it now sets up 16 of them, right? But now I can go through and I can change maybe the level on one, or filter another one, or attack the other one, or release the other one, and kind of manipulate the audio in the way that I want it to be able to work and get busy with it, right? I've taken like bass notes from a particular song. In fact, I've done it with Bill Withers with Ain't No Sunshine, and press the note or put a key in, key shift pad, it gave me the 16, and I have a bass line to work with off of one bass note from the Bill Withers track, which is pretty easy, right? So you have all those things happening. A couple quick other things really quickly is not all, but certain parameters inside of Serato Sample, you can automate those things. So here, inside of Ableton, I can automate and map these parameters to a MIDI keyboard or to some kind of MIDI device really easily, right? So if I wanted to be able to change the filter on pad number 2, I can map that to a knob on my keyboard and then do kind of a little filter sweep on it if I want to, right? Or if I want to change the stretching of the time of particular pad, I can do that as well, and then have that all drawn out as automation inside of whatever DAW that you're working with, right? So you can go through and draw it yourself, or you can actually physically go through and map it out and make it happen, right? So all that stuff is there, and the last thing I'm gonna show you, just kind of to show you the kind of extreme stretching that you can do with this, is I'm gonna take sync off of here and clear this out. set up one here. And I'm going to take sync off here, and I'm going to bring the BPM down to about, let's say 10 BPMs. And then listen to it here. And I'll even time stretch that one pad as well down some more, so I'll go minus 75 with that. So if you're doing sound design, this is where you can kind of get really busy, doing some really interesting things, kind of horror flick kind of vibes going on right here. Walking Dead, something like that. Right, so again, no glitches, no pops, no artifacts in the audio. It's time stretching it really, really clean going across, which is kind of dope, right? So that is Serato Sample.